Olá, combatentes do canal da Guerra. Eu preciso confessar para vocês que o vídeo de hoje é uma realização pessoal muito grande para minha entrevista com Andrei Matyanov. Matyanov, para quem não conhece, né, ele foi oficial, ele nasceu em Baku, no Azerbaijão, mas ele é russo, né, ele nasceu na antiga União Soviética e ele foi oficial da Marinha soviética, né, então ele tem muita experiência, né, com navios, com Estado-Maior. Ele participou de diversos eventos no Cáucaso, e depois ele saiu da Marinha, mudou para os Estados Unidos, escreveu diversos livros, vocês encontram aqui na descrição, e ele tem tanto um blog quanto um canal que são maravilhosos, são referências, são as ideias do Matyanov são altamente disruptivas. Eu acho que no exterior ele talvez seja uma das pessoas que mais se aproxima, né, da mentalidade do público do canal Arte da Guerra, de maneira que vocês vão gostar muito dessa entrevista. Já está no canal dele, quem quiser assistir direto em inglês pode. Eu sugiro que vocês se inscrevam no canal do Matyanov. Eu todo dia olho o canal dele, tá? Todo dia eu escuto alguma coisa lá. Se inscrevam no canal dele, o link se encontra aqui na descrição. Adquiram os livros dele, sigam ele no blog. E agora vocês vão ver a nossa entrevista, tá? Com legendas. Essas legendas foram cortesia do Felipe Bombardelli, inscrito aqui do canal. Ele gentilmente pegou o vídeo e legendou em português com um trabalho maravilhoso. Eu quero mandar um grande abraço pro Felipe, tá? Obrigado pela gentileza e pelo carinho com o público do nosso canal. Você tem a nossa eterna gratidão aqui. Eu queria dizer para vocês que essa daí, eu espero que não seja a última entrevista do Matyanov aqui no Arte da Guerra. A gente quer fazer outra. Ele é genial, tem um senso de humor fora de série, ele é cáustico, assim, que a gente é muito parecido na maneira de ver o mundo, tem uma formação parecida e mais ou menos da mesma idade. Ele é de 62, eu sou de 66, tá? Então é essa entrevista que vocês vão assistir agora. Aproveitem ao máximo, foi muito legal, vocês vão aprender muita coisa como eu também aprendi. Vamos ouvir o Matyanov então. Hi fellows of the channel Arte da Guerra. It's a great pleasure to me to receive Andrei Matyanov. A Soviet naval officer, Andrei Matyanov is one of the greatest military analysts of our time. A prolific writer, his books were prophetic in predicting American military decline. It's therefore a great pleasure and an enormous honor for us to welcome you to our program. We hope this is the first of the many times. Welcome on board.
Andrei. Thank you, sir. And yeah, my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Andrei, do you think we are at the edge of a third world war with Middle Western happenings and Israel, Hamas, and Iran? What do you need can happen in this case?
I'm not I'm not Arabist, of course. I'm not specialist in the area. But first, we are in the World War III in some sense already. It's they use the stupid name hybrid war, but we have been with this into this war since 2014, and because of the pressure nuclear deterrence provides, it develops on a very slow, so to speak, slope. So I think so we might encounter the large regional war because one of the obsessions of the Likud party and Mr. Netanyahu is to fight Iran, actually. So this is their kind of dream. And there could be, I mean, it's not excluded at all that they may try to engage Iran some way. I do, however, think that you will not see direct military intervention from Russia in this case. And if Russia doesn't intervene directly militarily, although I would expect Russia to support Iran, including by providing of the intelligence information and some technical support, I think so Iran can handle it completely on its own. Another matter, that Iran has military capability which can turn actually many Israeli cities into parking lot, or they can even sink one of the American carriers or part of their carrier battle group. That will lead to the escalation. And considering all that, you can say that, you know what, Israel may go for the Samson option, which is of course nuclear option, and they will just blow the Tehran or something like that. Or United States will escalate towards the nuclear threshold, because the loss of their major surface combatant, let alone if something happens to the U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, God forbid, of course, the only answer they will have is to go nuclear, because they don't have any other means to influence Iran. And Iran, of course, already shown it in 2020. They can attack and destroy basically any U.S. Military base in the Middle East if they wish so. So it is a dangerous situation, but unless it goes nuclear, God forbid, of course, you know, then we should be probably within the confines of the large regional conflagration. But the point is, neither United States nor Iran, they want to go there. I don't think so. And what is United States doing right now, despite usual, you know, histrionics and showing how tough and how great they are, is in reality probably trying to somehow contain Israel from committing even larger set of the war crimes. And in this case, if that is true, if these assumptions and there are signals from Washington, if it's true, then what can I say? Good, you know, at least maybe we will be able to contain this, you know, within some kind of the reasonable, well, reasonable limits. Let's put it this way.
Thank you, Andrei. And in this situation, in this context, do you believe United States continue to help Ukraine, or do you think Ukraine is out?
Well, Ukraine is out with or without United States. It makes no difference, because militarily it's done. What we see now is basically the formalization of the military defeat, because Ukraine, I made the video today, by the way, specifically about that, when White House already came up with such lies as Russians execute those own personnel and ready to kill the whole units who do not want to go on the offensive, which is, of course, complete malarkey. But the point is, militarily, they don't have any mobilizational potential left. They basically are drafting now people who are 70 years old. They draft amputees. They draft women. And so it's basically, how to put it, it's a Volkssturm, but actually German Volkssturm in 1945 had better combat capability than Ukrainians have today. And there are also confirmed data, many thousands of the AWOL, they just, you know, just run away. Some of them run towards Russians, majority of them run towards who knows where in Ukraine. So we have a military catastrophe for them unfolding, and the only question is today, how far Russia will decide to go. And this is the main point they discuss right now in Kremlin. How much of Ukraine, as some people say, Kharkov and Mykolaiv and Odessa, maybe something more. But that's the only kind of issue which has to be discussed. Other than that, militarily, Ukraine lost the war probably when they started completely lost the war when they started this so-called counteroffensive, which shows illiteracy of people in the West in terms of, I'm talking about military professionals. It wasn't counteroffensive. It was offensive to try to do something about Russian strategic defense. They failed miserably, of course, with catastrophic losses. And here we are today.
Andrei, what do you think will happen with NATO after this conflict? Do you believe NATO is living in a crisis?
Yeah, it's NATO is in a crisis. It's first, most importantly, both NATO is a euphemism for the United States being in Europe. let's put it this way. Europeans can go and bloviate whatever they want about their defense, and defense of Europe against who, I don't know. I mean, they have more problems from Africa right now than they have problems from Russia. But the point is that NATO ends as Lord Ismay, the first Secretary General of NATO, stated, we need NATO to, to keep Russians out, Germans down, and us in. So there you go. So, but the problem is, of course, Europe of today is basically, it's a meal. It's a food. United States is eating it right now, and inevitably with this deindustrialization and economic catastrophe which is unfolding there, NATO will disintegrate too. And Germany, if you look attentively at the coordination of the NATO in Europe, what happened to Germany, it defies imagination. And by the way, Soviet army in the 1970s and 1980s, they didn't respect that much of the U.S. Army, except for the, tactical nukes and things of this nature, and Air Force. But as combined arms warfare army, it was Bundeswehr, which Soviets respected dramatically, because they said they knew they were the best army in Europe. They were better than Americans, actually. So this is not the case anymore. Germany is deindustrialized. Militarily, it's a pygmy. So, and when you look at this, NATO is already in the process of disintegration. So once the military defeat is formalized politically, that means Russia comes in and dictates the unconditional surrender, so to speak, conditions, what has to be done, it's over for NATO.
Do you believe the German army has some chance of recuperation, or that Europe can go independently of the United States?
Not on the level of the warfare of the 21st century, which we're observing right now. They certainly still are capable to produce some things, but you already saw what happens to the best tanks in the world called Leopard 2. They burn just beautifully. So this is what, and then do not forget, German population has been emasculated utterly. And I mean utterly. We are talking about people, they cannot identify what gender they are, for crying out loud, So they have what, 42 genders or 180? I don't know. I just lost their count. So I don't think so. Once you go through this basically deformation, which they came through under Angela Merkel, and of course, how Frau von der Leyen, while being Minister of Defense, destroyed the remnants of Bundeswehr. And now with the disintegration, I don't see how Germany can come up with anything anytime soon. It might take generation for them to return even to the good old glory days of Bundeswehr of 1970s and 1980s. But today, I don't see it. And same goes for the Europe as a whole. They don't have resources. They simply don't have resources. When you have people who are basically, even Borrell, this, just insane dude, Joseph Borrell, who is Russophobic, fanatic, even he has to admit that Europe and Germany lived that well since 1960s, early 70s, primarily thanks to the Soviet-Russian energy. They don't have it anymore. You don't have energy, you don't have economy. That's simple as that.
Andrei, I want to you talk in your video about American military doctrine. After the World War II, the Americans talked to the German generals who about their tactics and so, but they never studied Soviet tactics and strategy. Do you think that situation has changed, or the Americans continue to make the same errors? They don't study Chinese, Russians, Iranians, and so. What do you think?
Well, they study, but it's just half the deal. And again, for example, if not for Colonel David Glantz, himself a veteran of the Vietnam War, the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College in Leavenworth, Kansas. It's their main preparation where they prepare the staff officers for the planning missions and all that. They would never have actually a real serious departmental study of the Red Army warfare, if not for Colonel Glantz, who actually produced and actually also initiated the famous magazine, which is called Slavic Military Studies. If not for that, they would still be basically drinking the Kool-Aid from Guderian, Manstein, Manteuffel and all that, how they almost defeated those damn Ruskies, but, because of the winter, as we all know, in Wehrmacht trenches, there was always minus 20 Celsius, while in Russian trenches, it was always plus 20 Celsius, and Russians were in flip-flops. It's good old Western excuses. The same with Napoleon, So French do not know. Most of French have no clue what Battle of Borodino, Battle of Smolensk was. It was about, Napoleon went into Russia, Russians ran away, and then winter struck and bang, he lost the Grand Army, of the 675,000 people. I mean, I guess you cannot fix stupid. And on the American side, because they are completely poisoned by this idiotic war in Gulf, which they beat down after half a year of predispositioning, predeploying forces, the third-rate military, it's not even third, the fourth-rate military, with no actual air force, no actual air defense, no actual, electronic warfare capability, how would have been basically illiterate, and yet they try to learn lessons based on that. Of course, they're not going to learn anything. And now, when we have the modern war of the 21st century, the most important thing, they don't have the access to what really matters, correlates of war, the actual operational tactical data on the use of the hardware, how it influences through operational research, the tactics, field manuals, operational manuals, and things like that. The only thing they have really is the electromagnetic and optronic picture of the battlefield through their own ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance means, and then of course from the baloney, malarkey, which the Ukrainian military feeds them. And as you know, Ukrainian military kills 20,000 Russians a day. They just, like all those Germans, French, or what have you, they always something, just doesn't allow them to become victorious and take the Kremlin. And that's the problem. They will not learn it. And now when you also begin to look at the state of the American professional military education, when you look at the catastrophe, academic catastrophe, and ideological catastrophe in the West Point, Military Academy of the West Point, when you look at what is happening in the U.S. Air Force Academy, I mean, they're not going to learn anything. They're going to continue to study their great victory over Saddam's army. So there you go. And those fringe voices, they will be ignored.
Andrei, do you think that a problem of the states in Ukraine is that they try to use the same tactics that some countries of NATO used in Afghanistan, that was a counterinsurgency? Do you think they trained the Ukrainians, the Ukrainian army, at the tactics they used in Afghanistan?
Well, I'm pretty sure they tried, but none other than Ukrainian army, through many of their high-ranking officers, are on the record that we don't want your tactics, we don't want your operational views. We go back to the Soviet tactics, how we were taught of the combined arms operations. It's just not applicable. It wasn't applicable then. Now, when you have a completely new territory in terms of the full-blown net centricity of the modern armies, of the extremely advanced ISR complex, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. And of course, Russia, unlike Iraq, Russia has her own excellent satellite constellation, which also observes what it needs. Then suddenly, you read the field manuals, U.S. Army field manuals, it's all about beating the guys who have no air defense, they don't have air forces, they don't have any competent soldiers, they don't have any other forces, they cannot even comprehend still they probably getting around now to realization that Russian military industry dwarfs that of the United States, let alone any European country. They never knew it because they use this metric of the GDP, which is completely fictitious, gross domestic product, and they think so because there are a lot of money, floating there. I mean, that you have such a great industry. No, you don't. It's not United States of 1980, which was a industrial monster. United States long ago lost. I mean, it was deindustrialized catastrophically, and there you go. Now we have the situation.
Andrei, you live in the United States for 30 years, okay, about 30 years. So you know very well the country, the military, and so. Do you think the American military understand what is happening with their industry, their military industry? They understand, they know that, or they live in a fantasy?
Many do, and it's not military. You go to the, for example, papers by General Accounting Office, so people for the Government Accountability Office and things like that, a Congressional Budget Office. You look at that, you look at this paper, the information is out there. It's just the system is so corrupt, what is called military industrial congressional media complex, that they cannot develop even proper strategy or proper basically policy towards what they need, how they define their national interest. The only thing they know is ideological mantras that, oh yeah, we're the greatest, whatever, there's nothing which really can touch us. Well, anything can touch them. And the point of the military industrial complex in the United States is to make extremely expensive and supremely inefficient military, weapon systems. And everybody saw it. It took special military operation to actually expose it as primarily financial fraud. You have the air defense complexes which cannot track even, not forget about hypersonic. They cannot do anything with the supersonic or just even subsonic missiles. They can do nothing. They barely shoot down anything. So, while obviously, as you know, armed forces of Ukraine tell them, we shoot everything. They actually shoot more than Russians have missiles. But hey, you know what? And do you expect those people who get this information believe it? Some do. But others who have any brain left and who have at least graduated those ROTC and military academies in the United States when they still were competent, they don't. But again, how do you break through? Because so much money are made. Again, the revolving doors of the military industrial complex. You become Lord Austin, Mr. Austin. You are sitting on the board of Raytheon. What are you interested in? You're not interested in defending country. You're not interested in real war. What you're interested in is a bottom line capitalization of your company, how high are shares, and what will be your bonus check in the end of the year, how many millions it's going to be. That's the only interest they live by. And you finally get this whole generation of military and politicians who think and feel like that, and here we are.
Andrei, one of the greatest problems of the armed force of the United States is the recruitment. Why so few Americans want to serve, want to go to the Army, to the Air Force, to the Marines, to the Navy? What's happening with the youngs in America? Why don't they don't want to enlist, to serve?
Well, because their mythology kind of evaporated. People see what happened after 9/11. They saw the debacle in Iraq. They saw the debacle in Afghanistan. So it is debacle. I mean, United States Army didn't win a single war after 1950. And even 1950 in Korea, it was basically stalemate. After that, Grenada. Of course, they defeated Grenada. Then they issued Grenada. Yeah, they issued more medals than there were actually troops participating in all that. Other than that, what do you see? Beating some incapable, semi-literate Saddam force with all opportunities in the whole world supporting you on that? I mean, show me a real war. Vietnam, We know how it all happened. And, Afghanistan, we saw the withdrawal. And when you begin to look at the military history, I mean, I'm sorry, show me the professional, top-notch, the operational and strategic planning. There is none. There is none. And that's the issue. And you want to actually, you go to the bank and you ask for the loan or opening of the credit card. What do they do first? They pull up your credit history. They look at your credit score and what credit score the U.S. military-industrial complex has. We saw it.
Andrei, do you believe that after the Gulf War and the end of the Cold War, United States, they felt they were the only great kid on the block, and so they relaxed? Do you think this is the main problem? And so in this time, Russia and China grow.
Well, that's certainly a part of it, but it's a larger issue of for example, again, I am on the record. Again, I write books about it. The Russia study field in the United States is non-existent. It's basically a wasteland of shysters, academic frauds who do not understand how the world operates. And if you read my second book, I just showed, I mean, the moment anybody from with their military background comes to you and says, oh, but its cost is $1 billion, you have to stop conversation immediately, because the person who talks to you like this, when say, oh, look at the Zumwalt class destroyer, it's $4.5 billion. Well, I'm sorry, you do not define weapon system by their price. You define it by the combat effectiveness. And when you begin to look at this combat effectiveness against who, and as I already stated, show me the statistics. Well, it's all secret. Of course, it's all secret. When we have now that basically confirmation that the first, well, not first, I mean, there was the second generation of Patriot PAC-2 failed miserably in Israel during the first Gulf War. They didn't intercept 90% of easy ballistic targets. And when you begin to look at it, it was both relaxation, but it was, again, it's corruption. It's corruption at the highest levels because they need to make money. They want to, hey, I mean, I understand they want to be super rich. And as a result, you have F-35, okay? It's, I don't know, just lazy didn't kick F-35 in the butt, by now, because it is a complete embarrassment, okay? And when you look at this, you look at the weapon systems, you look at the concepts, you look at the field manuals, who are they trying to fight in this particular case? You cannot expect it from the country which is completely insulated by the two world oceans from all major theaters of operation, and who never experienced any foreign invasion on its on the United States proper. If you don't have school. You don't have experience. You don't have cultural impetuses to develop a serious non-expeditionary force. But United States is expeditionary. United States Army is expeditionary force.
Andrei, today the Chinese have the greatest navy in the world. It's not a navy as the same type of the United States. They don't have so much carriers, but they are growing. They have a good surface force. They are building submarines, and they have the supersonic missiles. Do you think United States Navy has some chance to turn the table?
There is no doubt that at this stage, Chinese have one of the largest, actually, surface fleet, and it's fairly modern. It also has hypersonic missiles at its disposal. They are different from Russian hypersonic missiles. They are actually ballistic hypersonic missiles like the F-21, which you launch from the vertical shaft, vertical launch system. But here's the issue. While this is true, China is lagging in terms of the submarine force. In terms of the nuclear-powered submarines, China definitely not anywhere near with United States or Russia. Virginia's, for example, the mainstay of American U.S. Navy force are excellent subs, top notch. And in this respect, while definitely China can defend itself at the first island chain, I don't think so that Chinese Navy has the capability to survive, for example, the fight for the shipping lanes of communications in the Indian Ocean. Especially if, well, we know AUKUS, this, Australian, United States, and
Yes.
United Kingdom thingy, it's primarily the, how to put it, a wet dream, but still, United States can deploy its submarine force on the shipping lanes of communications of China, where China receives more than 25% of its energy, especially from Iran, and they can fight there and they can cut it. And in this particular case, that will represent a major problem for China. That is why China is doing everything possible to have their energy supply lines within the continent, and that means Russia. It's totally natural. Now they want to consider some type of the Arctic routes, but then again, they will have a mighty Northern Fleet there and its submarine force if it comes down to war, God forbids, of course. But yes, they have excellent surface fleet, but in terms of submarines, it will take time for them to catch up.
Andrei, do you think America is... no, Biden. I don't know if Biden will re-elect, but Trump is in the corner. Okay, do you think America wants a war with China for Taiwan? Do you think they want to go to the war, or they force a war with China?
Neocons certainly want it. Again, you have to keep in mind that Washington, D.C. are very incompetent people militarily. They never were competent to start with. So they always dream about starting some kind of the conflict because they do not understand strategic and operational ramifications. And they still believe that, I don't know, I mean, they stuck in 1990s. Even in 1990s, Russia, while being completely in disassembled state, she still had the nuclear deterrent capable of turn basically the whole United States into the radioactive desert. Those people don't understand that. They don't understand that China is nuclear power. It might not have as many nuclear warheads as Russia does, but they certainly have nuclear potential. And of course, they think that, yeah, let's do it this way. Let's kind of start the war around Taiwan. Let's use Philippines, for example, as some sort of Ukraine, ram against China, and see where it goes. But again, what we saw in the last several years, it is sheer strategic incompetence across the board. It's not just political elites. It's CIA, it's intelligence community, it's Pentagon. They have no clue. And this is what is scary. And that's why they are scary, because they're so stupid, pardon my French, that they may start something, they will lose immediately control as they lost in Ukraine. And there you go. So take any political leader, any congressman, any guy from whatever intelligence community, you look at their backgrounds, they're lawyers primarily. Nothing wrong with being lawyers, but you do not understand how the wars are fought, real wars. And when you have these people, and especially when you consider the American Ivy League schools, which primarily produce, well, I mean, academic fraud. I'm not talking about the STEM, mathematics, engineering, medical, and all that. They are great. But anything what comes down into two humanities, they produce garbage, frankly. And you have those people, good old boys, they go there only to make connections. The same as it's the case with Oxford in Great Britain. Look at Boris Johnson or Liz Truss. They are basically certified imbeciles. But they get promoted and elected because they can lie professionally. But that's the only thing they can do. And because of that, you have this combination of people who have no clue, and they will still make decisions. You remember Biden a few days ago, we're America, for God's sake, we can handle 2 wars. America wouldn't be able to handle a half conflict like special military operation, but there you go.
Andrei, today we have leaders in the East like Putin and Xi. I believe they understand this world better than Biden, Sunak, Macron, Scholz, and the others. Do you agree with this? That Putin and Xi, they have a project, they have a
Oh yeah.
plan.
Yeah, well, they have a much better understanding this. Mr. Putin is a professional and extremely well-trained and educated intelligence officer. Mr. Z, actually, he is a military guy. He has a rank in the Chinese army. So, I mean, these are the guys who know what strategy is. And then, of course, Mr. Putin has something which none in the NATO really has anymore, and especially the United States, which never had it to start with. It's called the general staff. Russian general staff is the best general staff in the world, and I'm talking by far. And when you look at this, yeah, Putin has it all. And again, they don't have to go out and do what political generals from Pentagon do, who basically suck up, they tell lies to convince and make feel good all those political, basically, curators. In Russia, yeah, if you get something wrong in terms of if you misreport something, you're in trouble, because there will be somebody else who will cross-check you. And that is why you have to constantly report the truth, the way it's, fact happens on the ground or in the air, whatever you want. And as a result, you can see yourself today. And what can I say? Yeah, I mean, Russians know about war better than basically most of American generals. Average Russian knows about the war, especially, the educated. And don't forget, we lost 27 million people and defeated the largest and most powerful military machine in history. Of course, Nazi Germany and, Axis. And Russia is if you look at Russian history, is basically a nation of warriors who consistently defeats best of the best. They try to go there, they get, their butt kicked. Then Russians have a joke. I mean, it's not a basically secret. They say every century, combined West goes to Russia to get its ass kicked and then kicked out. So this is exactly what happens. And yeah, so that's a completely different level of the military culture.
Andrei, in the case of Ukraine, do you think Russia will go to Odessa, or they will stop in the Dnieper?
Difficult to say. That's the point. Can Russia go there? Yes. The issue is, does Russia want to take this much of Ukraine on its balance? Russian economy, while huge, much larger than German economy, still, do not forget, Russia is basically digesting right now, not only economically. Economy and money is the easy part. It's the population and the cadres which you need to install there to run it in accordance to the Russian laws. Do not forget, those territories, they have been under Ukrainian rule for so many years now. You have new generation of people there, many of who they don't like Russians. So that's the only fundamental issue which is being discussed in Kremlin right now. But if Russia can take Ukraine, Odessa, oh, absolutely. And actually, many of Russian political top people, like Mr. Medvedev, and Mr. Patrushev and Mr. Lavrov, they have been on record that it is a Russian city and it basically belongs to Russia. So possible, but not necessarily now. But as for the left shore of Dnieper, absolutely, that's probably going to happen. And if you didn't know, the Russian diversionary recon groups are already operating on the right bank of Dnieper. So it's we'll see. I'm not in general stuff. I don't know, but that will be my guess.
But Andrei, I think that a great problem the Russians will have to face in the future is that NATO, United States and NATO, they give it to the Ukrainians long-range weapons. These weapons, by the right bank of the Dnieper, can attack Donbass, do you think these weapons will be a problem as the same that Golan Heights are for Israel? I think Russia will need a buffer zone in Ukraine. Do you think it's possible? They will try to a buffer zone.
I hear, yeah, I see where you're coming from. Yes, fact is, you don't need to even listen to me. Mr. Medvedev and Mr. Putin are on the record, and I quote them, that if they get longer range weapons, we're gonna move further away for them not to be able to attack whatever. So it's pretty kind of self-evident, you know. But of course, Russia has the technological means, including the air defense, to mitigate what is basically possible. Whatever will be delivered, the same as was ATACMS. And let me put it this way. The United States has been kind of a little bit hesitant providing them with the longer range because they know that that might lead to a really fast escalation and Russia will end up standing on the border with Poland. So, I mean, nobody wants that to do that, you know, not yet at least. So it is possible that they will get longer range weapons. How probable it is, I don't know. But, well, Russia will just move further to the west, and that's it.
Andrei, what's the meaning? Why did Russia did not destroy the bridges on the Dnieper? Because all the weapons come through the bridges. I don't understand this. What do you think? Why they did not destroy the bridges? Everybody in Brazil wants to know this.
Two reasons. Humanitarian. A lot of supplies, food, medicine, all kinds of things are going through those bridges in Ukraine. Russia is not Israel. Russia is not bombing that is why, for example, it's not a war for Russia. It's special military operation. Because if that would have been war, pure operational strategic manuals, it would be completely different kill ratio of civilian people, of the civilian infrastructure. Much more would have been allowed. First. And second, Russia will need those bridges herself. That's kind of self-evident. So why would Russia basically blow something which she will use later?
Yes, it's a good answer. Andrei, the other problem we have is all the weapons NATO sent to Ukraine, Russia destroyed. Destroyed HIMARS, Javelins, Leopard, Challenger, Bradley, and is waiting for the Abrams and F-16. What do you believe that will happen in the future for the weapons industry in the States and the NATO countries? They have a crisis. They have a problem.
Yeah, they do. And the point is, don't forget, Leopard 2, even a few months ago, was basically presented and promoted as the best tank in the world. Well, you know what happened to them pretty fast. So I have a saying, you know, nobody ever escaped Cornet to start with. And then, of course, you have Russian combat helicopters, which are armed with a variety of the anti-tank weapons, including Elmur, which is Russians called Lemur, what is called item 305. It's a almost 20 kilometers long range shoot and forget missile, which can be actually operated in any regime. Radio command, you know, so shoot and forget. So, I mean, there's no point to pretend that they, you know, basically those weapons are something special. And it's the fact that F-16 makes no difference. Russia already sent the message by, I spoke about it today in my video about what is the S-400 when it's completely networked with the early warning aircraft systems such as A-50U, and
Yes.
other systems and other combat aircraft. It's a completely new operation in the actual combat conditions when the net centricity works and you get the synergetic effect. And that is why Russia shot down, annihilated last 10 days, 24 fixed-wing aircraft of the whatever was left in the arsenal of the armed forces of Ukraine. How did they do this? It's not a secret anymore. It's S-400 in combination with A-50U and other airborne assets. So they have been able to shoot down the aircraft, low-flying aircraft, which thought that they were safe. They were shooting them at the extreme ranges, up to 400 kilometers. This is something U.S. Air Force never heard before. They don't even know how to deal with that. And don't forget, the S-500 has even larger range, a longer range, up to 600 kilometers. And this is what is confirmed, probably something longer than that. So, and when you have the very good situational and tactical awareness of the battlefield, you get good targeting. Doesn't matter how far you are, you will be shot down. And that's how it works. So they simply, again, Western weapon systems and concepts are stuck in 1990s. Russian fight something which they would be fighting in 2030s. So that's a disparity, generational disparity.
Andrei, what do you think that happened with Elon Musk in the first months of the war? Musk talked about to help the Ukrainians, and so the time is passing and he's changing his ideas. What happened with the Musk and Starlink and so? Do you think?
Yeah, very simple. Russians developed a number of the weapon electronic warfare means which can detect and annihilate Starlink terminals. And again, listen, it's again, we do not know even 1/10 of what is being used there and how it's being used. And then suddenly, yeah, Elon Musk understood that if he continues, the reputation of his Starlink thing will be grossly damaged. It's already damaged, So, and that's why he started to kind of, try to be more reasonable in terms of supporting Ukraine, because evidently the Starlink turned out to be, well, it had some effectiveness, but it was really fast, countered, and nowadays you don't hear too much about it.
Andrei, the last question for you. I want to talk a little bit of the Krasuska 4. Krasuska 4. Everybody in Brazil asked me about this system, and I believe it was a bad surprise to NATO. The electronic warfare of Russia.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know much about Krasucha other than what is available in the open media. I definitely do not do spying, and I better not. I still want to visit Russia once in a while. I don't want FSB, grabbing me and throwing me into the cellar. No, I'm joking, of course. No, it's one of many electronic warfare systems. Krasucha is just one of them. Many people do not understand. Russians have this, for example, system called Murmansk. And that thing works, what we know. It shuts down practically all shortwave communications at a distance of 5,000 kilometers. So basically, Russia can shut down the whole communications of NATO, and it's just, nothing they can do about it. So in terms of even this guy, I mean, listen, you have Ben Hodges, I mean, the guy who lies about Russian military constantly. But even he, in 2015, he stated, oh my God, what we encountered in Ukraine in 2015, 8 years ago. He said it was the eye-watering experience. I mean, they have the most advanced electronic warfare systems in the world. And since then, a lot of things, improved dramatically, I would say. And that's the only thing I can tell you about it, because obviously electronic warfare, electronic countermeasure, and electronic countermeasures, these are extremely classified things. They represent one of the highest level of the state security. So what can I say? Evidently, the command and control, well, C4 complex of armed forces of Ukraine is severely limited, including because of those electronic warfare means.
Okay. Matyanov, I know you are a great friend of Pepe Escobar, a great Brazilian. I love the videos and the tests and the rights of Pepe. And I want you give a final declaration to Brazilian people. I hope you back to our channel other times. You have a great legion of admirators in Brazil. So the famous last words.
Well, listen, I am, first, I'm really grateful for you having me. And I know there are many people in Brazil who read me. And of course, Pepem is my good friend. We just spent time in Moscow just recently, in a really nice Sicilian restaurant. No, Pepe doesn't go to Brazilian restaurants, I can tell you. He went for Sicilian. So, but no, we're good friends. And I definitely, I am an old school Brazilian football admirer, but again, it's 1982, the greatest Brazilian team I ever saw in my life, with Socrates, Eder, Zico. That was Brazilian football at its finest. Well, Italians just turned out to be better, but it was an amazing team. Well, they produced one of the best, football matches in the history, Italy and Brazil. I mean, that was absolutely, I remember watching it in 1982. It was like unbelievable, just like absolutely emotional roller coaster. That's what it was. So that's what I remember. Obviously, great. And you wouldn't believe, I make feijoada myself, actually. Feijoada, how you call it, so the meat, beans, and I try to make it anyway. So I'm probably gonna be making it very soon again. So.
When you come to Brazil, you are my guest.
Oh, it will be my pleasure. I don't know if I will be able to make it anytime soon, but I certainly accept the invitation. So absolutely.
Mr. Matyanov, thank you for your time. It's very, very happy, a great pleasure to Canal Arte da Guerra. And I hope you back here as soon as possible.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime, Robinson. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you, Andrei.
Bye-bye.